Well, good morning. It's a pleasure traveling around the country talking about results. You know, they say that the average farmer will farm 40 crop seasons. 40, and every year tells a different story. Every year is different. And so what we do at our PTI Farm, our Precision Technology Institute, is we tell the story of what happened this year as well as the previous years we've been doing on-farm research. And I do think every year is different, and we're going to talk about that here today. By the way, 40 years, if the average farmer farms 40 years, this will be my 38th year of farming this year. So I don't know if that means I'm going to be dead or bankrupt in 2 years, but I'm getting close to that 40 is my point here. But I appreciate the guys having us here today. This is the time of year where we travel around and we just talk agronomic data. And you'll hear me mention this a few times today. I think 2025 looks to be pretty challenging. And so I want you guys to think about how you're going to farm smarter. I'm not going to talk about farming cheaper or anything like that. I want you to think about how you're going to farm smarter in 2025. I'm going to bring you data, and I know some folks are going to laugh at me a little bit. I'm going to bring you data from Illinois. Don't throw anything at me, okay? And everybody always says, well, Jason, you know, we're in the great state of Ohio. You're bringing Illinois data. It doesn't mean anything. And I'm not naive enough to think that everything we do on our farm is going to work on everybody else's farm. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that I know a lot of you folks grow corn and soybeans. That's what we're going to talk about today, the crops. You grow corn and soybeans, and I think the agronomics are the same. You may have different weather, different climate, you may have different soils, but I think the way we grow it is the same. And if I can find something that is repeatable, it's consistent, when I test it, it makes me money, not just this year, but the last few years, I think there's a chance it might work on other folks' farms. So if you have a question about anything that we're talking about today and whether it's going to work in your area or not, raise your hand and let's talk about it. Okay, fair enough? Everybody shake your head like this. Yes, okay, good. Good. I'm going to take you to the farm just to give you a little bit of kind of an update of what our farm is. Some of you folks have been here to our research farm, but we're right along Interstate 55 and we're south of Chicago about 100 miles. I don't like Chicago. I don't want to be anywhere near Chicago, but you all know where Chicago's at on the map. We're about 100 miles straight south. And on this farm, we conduct about 160 agronomy trials every single year, okay? And we're looking for ways to make more money farming. We open our doors in the summertime of June, July, August, September. We invite growers from all over the country, all over the world. It's very common for our field days to have 11 to 13 states represented every day and 1 to 3 different countries. But my point is that farmers are coming to this PTI farm to talk about challenges that they have on their farm. How do we fix them? And so we have products, we have technology, and we have a conversation every day with these growers and say, all right, how are we going to do this? How are we going to attack it? And how are we going to fix it? At our farm, we are precision planting, and so we talk fundamentals. When you come to the farm, and I hope you guys do this summer, but we're going to put a planter in the ground, and we've got it set up wrong. We're going to plant corn in June, July, August when you come out, and we're going to do it wrong. And your job is just like these folks up on the screen, get your pocket knife out, do a little bit of digging where we planted, and you got to figure out what's wrong. We're going to go into the cab of that tractor. We're going to adjust the 2020, or we'll make some different planter settings. We'll put the planter down again, and we'll go plant, and we'll see if we fixed it. Or let me rephrase that. We'll see if you fixed it. And if you didn't, we'll just do the whole process over again until we get the job done right. We're trying to address problems so you guys can identify them when they're happening for real on your farms. We do this every day. Now, part of the vision of the PTI farm was technology. Half the battle with technology is just knowing what's available in the marketplace But here's the thing, guys. Take a high-speed planter, for example. How do you guys buy that planter? Can you demo a high-speed planter on your farm? I'll tell you a little story. I was younger. I don't remember how old I was, but I was in Dad's pickup truck. And we go up to our Case IH dealer. I don't remember what he was thinking about buying, but I was young enough, and I asked him, I said, Dad, how does this work? When you buy this piece of equipment, he said, you got to write a check out for this expensive equipment. You've never used it before. You got to write a check out, go buy it, and then put it on your farm, use it, and figure out if you like it. And I said, Dad, this sounds crazy to me, because the pickup truck that we're sitting in right now, I was with you when you bought it. And that's not the way it worked. He says, what are you talking about? I said, I remember us pulling into the car dealership, and you walked around, and you found this truck you liked. The dealership salesman comes out and was talking to Dad and said, would you like to test drive this truck? He gave Dad the keys to that truck. He drove it around. We pulled back up in the lot. The salesman said, why don't you take it home and show the wife? And we took it home. I still remember pulling into the driveway, and Mom comes running out and said, oh my gosh, he bought a new truck. She liked it too, and guess what? Dad bought it. He bought it. But how do you do that with a high-speed planter? How do you go up to your dealer and say, yeah, I'd like to get this on the farm and go try it? Before you write a check for it. Does that happen? It doesn't happen. And so at the PTI Farm, we said, you know what? We need to allow this to happen. So we have a sandbox, is what we call it. We have a non-crop area. I don't plant it in the spring, because when you come to the farm in June, July, or August, I want you to plant corn. This is what it looks like. We have different colored tractors, different color planters. I don't care what color you like. We're going to have them all. And you get to climb in these tractors and go plant. Press the buttons on that 2020 monitor. See how it works. The liquid system we have on the planter. We were loaded with water at the time, but let's look how this system works. You want to plant 10 mile an hour? Let's plant 10 mile an hour. This is what we do every day at the farm. And again, color doesn't matter. Totally unbiased here. But this is what we wanted on a farm, so you guys could understand what technology is available, and then go do it, because then you can compare it to what you have on your farm. And it doesn't cost a dime. Totally free. Our agronomy is totally open and honest. The 160-some trials that we do, we'll just take you out in the field. We'll show you the data. We'll show you the objective of what we're trying to study, and then whatever data we've got collected over the last few years, we're open and honest and say, here's what happened. And it's not just yield, it's profits. We'll talk more about that today. Sometimes I struggle with what we need to be testing at the research farm. And some of it comes down to how many things can you control in farming. Think about that. How many things can you control? You want to control a lot of different things, but I quickly realized in 1988, my first year of farming, were any of you guys farming in 1988, anybody? Oh, what kind of year did you have in 1988? Oh, it was a little dry that year, wasn't it? Yeah, I think everybody had a dry year that year. That was my first year of farming. I was a junior in high school. I went to the bank, I got a loan. I was kind of surprised about this whole thing. I went to the bank, they gave me money to go buy things like seed and herbicide, and I did it. I went and bought it. And I put it out in the field, and the thing is, it never rained a single day after I planted it. My first year of farming, I grew 48 bushel corn to the acre. I sold 100 bushel corn to the acre to my elevator. I said, I'm going to do a good job marketing. But all this happened my first year of farming, and I said, oh my gosh, this is like a train ran me over, but I have no control in anything. And ever since then, I said, okay, we need to take a look at this and test the things we can actually control and focus on it. That little black sliver between those two circles, that's where I want to live. But what can you control? Somebody asked me that one time, and I wrote them all down on the screen. And I said, well, what about grain prices? They're pretty important. Drought, flood, rising input costs, interest rates, disease, they're all important, but can I control any single one of those things on the screen? I can't. And so we end up being reactive from those things. And so I said, I need to live in that center of things that I can control. We're going to challenge the status quo. We're going to question things. See, here's what happens. You guys have been farming a long time. and you do things a certain way because dad taught you how to do it, granddad taught him how to do it, and ladies and gentlemen, that's just what y'all do. When the calendar flips to planting time, you go out and do it, and you do it the same way you've done it for the last decade. Your equipment's all set up to do it, you feel comfortable, you've done it before, by golly, I'm gonna go do it again. But how do you know that you're doing the right thing or the best thing? What do I mean by that? The best thing to get highest yield or highest profitability. The only way to know that is to test the way you've been doing things to something else. Now, do you all put in plots? Anybody put in plots on their farm? Yeah, I know you guys do, yeah. Do you know that academia says that in order to prove whether something's repeatable, you've got to test it for 3 years and have at least 3 replications of what you're trying to test each and every single year. So, you guys are putting in trials. Do you all do that? That's very hard to do. It takes time and it takes money, and in my opinion, those are 2 things in farming we ain't got near enough of. So nobody does it. But that's what we do at our research farm. We're going to challenge the methods that you guys are used to doing, and we're going to try to find some things that work. Now, what if we do? What if we do? In some of the 160 trials that we have, we do find something that increases yield, or increases profit, or increases efficiency. What do we do then? Well, that's when we change. Does that word change scare anybody? The older I get, it scares me to death. Change is inevitable. We're going to have to do it. But it's so much easier, though, when you have the data that says if we change to go to this practice, we're going to be better. And it's easier to accept. That's what we're doing every single day at the PTI Farm. We believe in being better. Every year we want to be better. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to be better in 2025. This is data. I know it's from the University of Illinois. Bear with me a little bit, I know. But this is data the University of Illinois put out just a few weeks ago that says, look at this blue line in the middle of the screen. This is average profit per acre by a central Illinois farmer growing corn and soybeans, paying average cash rent over the last 24 years. What does it say? It says farmers have been in it the last 24 years for $100 an acre, net. That's what it says. Now, some years have been better, some years have been worse, but look at the red on the right side of the screen. That's projected 2025. And so remember what I talked about earlier? We got to farm smarter. It's going to be so important to do it this year in 2025. We've got commodity prices that are lower than what we like. So how are we going to attack this thing? We have expenses on the farm that I still think are way out of whack, and with the low commodity prices, it's going to be difficult. So we have got to do things on the farm that are going to make us money. I say this all the time. If I make an investment on my farm, I go buy a piece of equipment or technology, that thing better go to work for me and make me money. It's like the stock market. You guys have stocks in your 401k or anything like that? When you buy a stock, do you expect the stock to go up and make you money? Yes. It's the same environment. If I invest money in something, it better go to work for me and make me money. If it doesn't, due to the economic picture we have right now, it's gone. You're no good to me. I can't do it. I can't afford to implement it on the farm. So we got to weed them things out and not do them. But I want you to remember this number, this $103 per acre right here. We're going to talk about what we're doing at the farm to be more profitable and how we can add dollars to that 103. Now, today, I want you guys to help me. I want you guys to be a part of the presentation. You guys all have phones. You know, they say if you go to a meeting, they say, put your phone away. It's kind of rude to be on your phone while somebody's talking. We're totally different at the PTI Farm. I want you to get your phone out. I know you guys have smartphones. Get your phones out. And I want you to go to pollev.com. You can see it up here on the screen. Just go to your web browser, pollev.com. Today, we're going to ask you a series of questions, and you get to vote whatever you think the right answer is. And no one's going to know what you voted. It'll be totally anonymous. But you go to pollev.com, and when you go into this, it's going to ask you for a session, and you're going to type P planting 222. Now, some of you guys are looking at me kind of weird, saying, what are you doing with this thing? I promise you, if you'll bear with me and do this and participate on your phone, this will be a lot of fun. let me back up. PollEV.com on your web browser. Go to the session P Planning 222. If you get into this properly, you're going to see a question on your phone, and I see some folks are already getting into it. The question is going to be how long you've been farming, how many years you've been farming. Now let me back up. PollEV.com, and listen, I've got my guys floating around the room. If you don't know how to do this, just raise your hand. They'll come to you and they'll do it right on your phone for you. Okay, don't be ashamed. Don't be bashful. Okay, raise your hand if you don't know how to do this. And listen, I come from Illinois, and Illinois is known for bribery with our politics. And you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to give somebody one heck of a prize for this first question. And throughout the presentation, if you'll ask questions or answer a question, I'm going to reward you with a gift. But you got to get on this first. PollEV.com, P-Planning 222. Let's see if, we got some votes coming in. Look at this. How many years you've been involved in farming? And by the way, my disclaimer on this is, how many years you've been paying the bills? Okay? Right? You've been selling the grain and paying for expenses. That's you. How many years you been doing that? I told you this will be my 38th year farming. Where are y'all at here? We got some rookies. We got some that are less than 5 years. We got some folks that have been farming over 50 years. Is that right? Oh, I see some head shaking, yeah. You guys ever been to a wedding where they say if you're a married couple, get out on the dance floor, and all these married couples come out on the dance floor and they're dancing a little bit, and they say, okay, if you've been married less than 10 years, why don't you just go sit down? You guys ever seen that before? We're going to kind of do that today, but I could care less how long you've been married, really. But I am concerned about how long you've been farming. I want to find the person in this room today that has been farming the longest. Okay? So where are we at here? We got 4% of the crowd that's been farming over 50 years. Now listen, I'm smart enough to know that if you've been farming for over 50 years, you might not have a smartphone in your hand. I know this. I know this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go with the old technology here, and we're just going to do this. If you've been farming for over 50 years, please raise your hand and keep it up high and be proud. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, keep them up, be proud. Okay, now I go into auctioneer mode now. Who's been farming 55 years? If you've been farming 55 years, keep them up. Okay, I lost a few. How about 58 years? Ooh, I'm down to 2, I think. 2, this will make it easy. Sir, how long have you been farming? 62. That's our number. All right, sir. I don't have a calculator on me, but you got to use fingers and toes, whatever. How long have you been farming?
65.
65. Can anybody beat 65? Okay. Yeah, give him a nice round of applause. Yeah. Now, sir, when was the last time you bought a brand new planter?
65.
65 years ago. Well, you're in luck because we're buying you a new planter today. It's an all decked out Fendt Momentum planter, all decked out with precision planting technology. Congratulations. I don't know how many acres you'll get planted with that, but it's a nice piece of equipment. All right, so now you know how this thing works voting, okay? I promise you, the questions are going to get a little tougher. This question on the screen, there's no multiple choice here. I just want to know if you can improve one thing on your farm, what would it be? And this is on your phone, you actually just type it in. The last meeting we went to and we asked this question, somebody typed in, my brother. Thought that was interesting. Profit, yes, I'd like to improve profit. Technology, yes. There's another profit, that's good. Efficiency, that's good. Spraying, we'll talk about that this afternoon, yeah. There's another profit. I see a trend happening here. Soil health, when someone says soil health, warm and fuzzy feelings just flush through my body. Somebody put cover crops up there, please. Nutrient efficiency. Oh, communication. Huh, interesting. Weather. Okay. One more. Good labor. Labor always shows up. Yeah. Good labor. Good labor. Okay, now listen, we've been asking this question for a few years now, and I haven't gotten rid of it because it applies to the current situation. In today's farming, do you think you can make more farm profit by doing better with the acres you currently have, or are you a grower that says, wait a minute, no. If I'm going to make more money farming, I just need more acres. Where are you at? Do you think, yes, I can do better, I can make more profit with the acres I have? Or are you a farmer that says, nope, just give me more acres, or I will give you a bailout of being undecided? You have three options. For the last 3 years, the answer to this question, or the average answer to this question, that I want more acres right now, I need to do better with the acres I currently have. Where are we at? We're at 81%, 82, 83. Everywhere we go, it doesn't matter what part of the country it is, the answers are always the same on this slide, wherever we go. Usually it's about 10% of growers that say, yep. How we farm smarter with the acres we have. I'm going to skip that one, just for time. So everybody always asks me, you say, hey, what did good at the farm this year? And you know, we put protocols in place for these 160 some trials that we do every year, and we go do them. And at harvest time, we'll take a combine out, we'll harvest them, we'll get the yield, we'll take the yield times the price of the crop to get our gross, and then we go back to our protocols and say, okay, what cost did we have in it? And I just subtract it. And I come up with a net. I hope you guys are kind of doing this on your own farms. But once we do this for every trial that we have at the farm, we simply have this database where I can sort it and say what things made me the most money on a per acre basis. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my top 10 return on investment winners for 2024. And please notice you don't see yield on this slide. There is no bushels of production on this slide at all. It's all dollars and cents because it's all about sustainability. It's like your checking account at your bank. You got to have more money coming into that account than money coming out of it, right? Someone please tell our politicians this. It might make things a little easier. But these are the top 10 things that made me the most money. And when I look at this, I say these are the things I need to be doing more of. Remember what we talked about? If I'm going to invest, it better go to work for me. These are the things that worked the best for me this past year. Oh, and by the way, we had some mistakes. Some of these are my fault. We screwed up. Mistakes happen in farming. Some of it's weather related. But when we make a mistake on the farm, I want to know how much it cost me. And you'll notice some of these numbers, they're big. They're big. And so when I make a mistake, I want to know what the number is and then figure out, okay, how do I not let it, I don't want it ever to happen again. And so we're going to go through these today. Okay? Number one, it'll go to our top 10 list. It's water management, it's irrigation. Look at that number, it's big. And by the way, the rest of the numbers, 2 through 10, I'm not happy with the number. In past years, the number has been higher. Why are these numbers lower than normal? Someone please help me. What? Well, price, commodity price. Yeah, commodity prices are lower and net return is going to come down. Normally my numbers are a lot higher than this. But look at the spread between water management and the rest of them. It doesn't matter what crop you're growing, we got to put water to the crop. Matter of fact, we look at it as a twofold situation at the farm. We put tile in to get rid of excess water. So here's what happens. It rains, rain goes through the soil profile and it hits our tile. Tile will take the excess water away, and I don't know how much tile you guys have in this part of the country, but in our part of the country, this tile, the laterals we put in are hooked up to an outlet, and the outlet will get rid of the water. And where does it go? It goes into a creek or to a river. My point is, you never see the water again. Good riddance. When we put our tile in at the farm, we said, this is not what we're gonna do. We're gonna put tile in to control water, to get rid of water when we're too wet, but we're gonna use that water to recycle, to irrigate. Look at all of our tile lines. They're set up to this reservoir. This reservoir right here is the lowest area of the farm. We started farming this, and when it would rain, that area would drown out. Man, I'm buying expensive seed, I'm buying expensive fertilizer, but I'm not growing a crop here. I'm losing money. That area right here was the most expensive acres on my farm. And I said, here's where we're gonna farm smarter. When it rains, if it's gonna hold water, that's fine. I'm just gonna make it bigger and I'm gonna make it deeper. We dug this 2.5 acres in size, 25 foot deep, and all of our tile takes the excess rainwater and drops it in the reservoir. And I just hold it for dear life. Because I know chances are we're gonna turn hot and dry in June, July, August, and I'm gonna recycle that rainwater. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nobody in Livingston County, Illinois, where this farm is at, that can irrigate. We don't have a water table underneath us. We don't have an aquifer. Can any of you folks irrigate? I should have asked that question earlier. Got a couple? Got a couple? But a very low percentage. Everywhere I go, I can't tell you how powerful it is to control water. It is unbelievable. And listen, I get farmers coming to our farm and say, Jason, thank you for the invite to your farm. I just want to let you know I'm never coming back again. And I'm like, what did I say wrong? And they said, well, you didn't really say anything wrong, but you've got irrigation on your farm and I don't like it. I'm jealous of it. And I'm like, listen, don't you get mad at me. I didn't have it either. All I did was dig a hole and now I got irrigation. That's basically what it came down to. I put tile in, dug a reservoir, and I'm holding water and I'm irrigating. And it's been unbelievable. Look at that water coming out of that pipe. That's all from my tile. That's the cleanest water you'll ever see in your life. We drink it every day when that thing's running. The problem is it hasn't been running for a while. We are dry. But all that is excess rainwater. I just park it in that reservoir, and then when we turn off hot and dry, I just suck that water right out and I irrigate the crop. And I can also fertigate it. It comes along with the ride. This is not a thirst thing. I can put food in it. Some of it's on top of the irrigation is on top of the ground, some of it's buried, but I don't care how you irrigate. If you have water and you can irrigate your crop, take control of it and go do it. I don't care what form of irrigation you have. This is the powerful nature of water. Look at the response of irrigation. In 2020, I grew an extra 105 bushel corn by having irrigation. Talk about taking control. That was obviously a dry year. This past year we were dry, couldn't buy rain in the last half of the season, and we picked up 65 extra bushel of corn. Now when we put our irrigation system in, we said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the variability out of all of our research trials. If we're too wet, well, I got tile, it'll take the extra water away, that's fine, but I can get good data. If we turn it off hot and dry, I'm gonna bring the water back in and irrigate and take the variability out of it. And we've done it, look at that, look at the control of this. We also farm around Walmart. I don't know if anybody farms around Walmart. When we acquired this farm, I saw this big white building out here and I said, wait a minute, that's Walmart. I'm gonna be farming around it. And so I went into Walmart and I said, Mr. Walmart, I said, I noticed you guys got a pond out there on the back side of your building. And they do. Every Walmart Supercenter built after a certain year, they all have a reservoir out on the back side of the parking lot. What do you suppose that reservoir is for? It just takes water from the parking lot. Yeah, and I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be farming around this body of water. I went and asked Mr. Walmart, I said, can I borrow your water and irrigate my corn and soybeans? And Mr. Walmart said, yes, you can do it. So this is where it all started, with that pond right there. We said, we're gonna irrigate from this pond our very first year, and if it works, we're gonna build a man-made reservoir, but we're gonna make it bigger and we're gonna irrigate more acres. And it worked. Now, tile is a huge component. It's my water source. Okay, I don't have an aquifer underneath me. Tile is my source of getting the excess water away and being my irrigation water. So I got to put tile in. Tile's kind of expensive, especially right now. It's really expensive. And I look at, this is a 3-year study since we put this tile in, and I'm looking at 15-foot pattern tile and 30-foot pattern tile. And right now, just cash only, no depreciation, that tile is going to pay for itself in 12 to 14 years. And I don't like those numbers. I don't like them. I'm like, I wrote a big check out to pay for this tile, and so I'm questioning the tile system, and I'm saying, okay, what can I have the tile do in addition to just getting water away? Will it do something else for me that could chip in and help get this return, this break even faster? And so here's what I did, and this is the cheapest part of putting tile in. We put these gate structures in. Think of this as my main. At the end of the laterals, I can simply shut the outlet off. You know how tile works. You know, it's gonna outlet into a main, and then the main's gonna dump it into the outlet. We just shut it off. And so now I got a tile in the field full of water, and then we're using the ability of the soil to pull that water out from around the tile to irrigate the crop. You think that works? You think the soil can do it? Now, if you're sand, it'll never do it. We're trying to understand on our farm if it actually works, and if it does work, how narrow do we have to have the tile to get it to go all the way from lateral to lateral? And so we'll just pull these gates, and I'll just shut the tile off and let the water table come up. Look at the tile. We got 15-foot pattern tile and 30-foot pattern tile. Now look at this. The soil's ability to pull water from the tile, in 30-foot laterals, I gotta move it 15 foot. Halfway to the next lateral. 15 foot, I got to move it 7.5. I hope 30-foot tile works because it's going to be cheaper to put the tile in. But in order to backfeed or irrigate water through the tile, what if I have to go to 15-foot tile? My expense goes up. This is what we're trying to study. I don't have the answer right now. I know this is kind of an aerial of what it looks like 15 and 30s. I know this past year it didn't work great. It chipped in a bit. But we were so hot and dry this year, I couldn't feed the crop through the tile. I needed it a bit higher. But it chipped in almost $10 an acre on the 15-foot tile and about $4 on the 30-foot. Over time, though, over the last 3 years, we've taken a break even of the tile alone from 12 to 14 years, then using the tile to hold water in the field to sub-irrigate or to backfeed, and now I'm at a break even of 8 to 9 years.
Question.
So it is chipping away. Yes, sir.
On your 15s, would you use 2-inch tile?
Oh, you're saying the question is, if we go close together, could we go with a smaller tile? That's a great question. I think we probably need to evaluate that. This is a 3-inch tile here. 3-inch, yeah. That's a great question. We'll start with this and see where it moves, and then if it doesn't work, then we'll have to go somewhere else. Yeah. The question is depth of the tile. So I am 32 inches to the top of the tile.
How much slope you got on that field?
How much slope we have? Not a lot, but we have enough to get rid of the water. People yell at me a little bit and say, Webster, you're flat, black, and beautiful over there in Pontiac. I don't think we are. We got enough fall to get rid of it. Yeah.
How do you get the water back into the top?
How do we get the water back into the top? So we're running about a 10th grade here, and so we'll basically cap it down here. We'll send the water down here, and we just backfeed all the way through, is how that works. Now, if I had a ton of slope or elevation, we're gonna have to zone it and just do the tops of the hills by itself, run the water source to that. We're flat enough here, we can get by with it. That's a good question. If you have tons of variability in elevation, you'll have to zone it. But I'm okay with zoning it that way, because if you're gonna come in and backfeed or irrigate on a hill, well, I'm interested in that because the hill is gonna burn up first, right? It's gonna shed all the water, and so that may be the only area you gotta bring water into in the growing season. The low ground, maybe it's got enough. So zoning it gives me the opportunity to do that.
Another question. Did you ever check the fertility in your water that went back to your pond?
Oh, let me go back to this picture. That's a great question. I gotta go back a little bit here, right here. Oh yeah, so we've got a lot of people say, wait a minute, Jason, you're using nitrogen on your farm to grow corn. Yes, I do. They say, you got a body of water there. You probably have a lot of nitrates in that water because it's coming all from my tile. What do you guys think the answer is to this? Do you think we're finding a ton of nitrate in this water? It's a great question, by the way. We test this water every 30 days because when someone comes to me that doesn't know what they're talking about, seems like there's a lot of those people, they'll point their finger at me and they're pointing their finger at you saying you as a farmer, you're letting nitrates get into the drinking water. Ladies and gentlemen, is that true? I heard a yes. I'm hoping I hear a lot of no's. We test this water every 30 days, and we're definitely testing it for nitrate. And the legal drinking limit for nitrates in drinking water is 10 part per million, and generally we're at 5 part per million on this water. Just for fun, one day we went into the kitchen sink at the PTI Farm. It's city water. We tested it when we sent a sample of the pond in. It was higher nitrate than the pond. Say that again. Where's it coming from the city water? I don't know. That's a great question. It's a great question. All I know is that I have very little in this pond. But I will say this, due to our irrigation program, I'm not putting on a large amount of nitrogen at any one time. I'm not going out in the spring and say, okay, I'm going to put on 200 pounds of nitrogen, use it for the whole season. I don't do that. I'm not fall ammonia. I haven't used ammonia in over 25 years. We'll just put a little on. With the irrigation, I can flip the switch to turn the water on to feed the crop, and I can put a little bit of nitrogen in it any day of the week I want. And we do it. It's just a little bit every single time. So our risk of losing some of that nitrate through the tile into the reservoir is minuscule. Something to think about. Good question. Thank you for that. And by the way, I have more gifts in the back of the room. When somebody asks a question, I will reward you with a gift. Okay, I will. I don't know where my guys went, but hopefully they're around here somewhere. Oh, there they are in the back of the room. Okay, good. All right, man, that was a long number one. Number two, high management corn. When folks come to the PTI Farm, I always get multiple growers coming to me saying, okay, Jason, I see what you're trying to do. We're trying to grow high yield corn, but are you making any money doing it? You're putting a lot of stuff on. You make a lot of trips to the field. Are you making any money? I can say yes, it's number 2 on our top 10 and an extra $90 an acre. Anybody know what the world record is for corn yield on a per acre basis? Anybody know? 623, you're right. Anybody ever grown 600 bushel corn? I can do it in 2 years, 300 one year, 300 the next. It's amazing to me, this 600 bushel thing. I pulled this data up last night as we were driving in to the great state of Ohio. This is corn grower results for conventional tillage, no-till, and strip till, and you can see the high, dry land and irrigated. Those are some pretty good yields. They're not 600. Are these names that are on here, anybody here today? Neighbors. Here is my historical yield data from the PTI Farm. We started in 2018, and just like you guys as farmers, when you pick up a new farm or you buy a new farm, you got to farm it for a year or two to figure out what's wrong with it, and then you go fix it, right, to get higher yield and higher profits. We're still doing that, and I tell you, it's been compaction, it's been pH, it's been drainage, the ability to irrigate. We've addressed a lot of those things. And look, we started our first year at 270 bushel corn, and do you know this past year, we grew 434.9 bushel corn. Ladies and gentlemen, when you grow 434.9 bushel corn, it makes you smile. It really does. It was a lot of fun. My teammate that was running the combine, he gets out of the combine, he says, Jason, that yield monitor was over 400 bushel the whole time. And I looked at him and I said, that's the way it's supposed to be. Incredible yield. It's just unbelievable. But from our first year at the farm to this past year, when we look at low yield to high yield, ladies and gentlemen, this is another number I like. That's a 60% yield improvement as we look at high yield. I like that number. It's going up. So that's our record right now. I don't know if we'll ever be able to beat it. I don't contend that we'll ever grow 600 bushel corn. I don't think we have the right weather for it. By the way, the gentleman that has 620 some bushel corn is from Virginia. His name's David Hula, and I think he went 500 this year, I think. But it's just an incredible number. I should set this up. How do we feed it? This is a popular question. We do use dry fertilizer in the fall, but I'll tell you, I cannot get 434.9 bushel corn by only using dry fertilizer. I cannot do it. And it works the same for soybeans as well. We're strip till. We really like our strip till. But we'll soil test. We'll figure out what kind of nutrition we need for the crop we're gonna grow. This will be my first shot of fertilizer. We're gonna put it in the band. No broadcast fertilizer allowed, by the way. It's all gotta be banded. Why are we gonna fertilize every square inch of the soil when we don't have a root there? So we're gonna band it, and we're gonna put it right there so the plant can get it. But I need to lower the amount of dry fertilizer I'm putting on in this application because I'm gonna do other applications to continue to feed the corn in this case. So I have to back it down. It's called reallocation. If you don't do that, you're gonna over-apply fertilizer and you're gonna overspend, and I cannot do that in today's economy. So we'll start here with DAP and potash. Then we come in with the planter. I've got liquid tanks and pumps, and we're gonna attack this thing in furrow. Here's how we usually do this with a furrow jet center, sugars and biologicals. In the wings is phosphorus and zinc. And then we go outside to the trench with our salty products like nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, and boron. But we end up with this. Now remember, I already got a dry fertilizer band. I got dry fertilizer underneath all of this. But look at this relay program where I have additional bands of fertilizer to just let this corn plant flourish, especially before V5. What's so important about a corn plant at V5 growth stage? What's that corn plant do? When the good Lord made a corn plant, he said at V5 you shall do what? Congratulations, you've just set 14, 16, 18, or 20 around. And you can't go back and do it again. At tassel time, you just can't put a snake oil on and say make it 14 or 20. Boy, I wish we could, that'd be great. You're doing it at V5, corn's this tall. And so you've got to set the stage to make this plant happy and let it flourish, and that's what all this is about. Then we come in with our irrigation and fertigation, and then we've got an in-season program. Again, just a little bit at a time. It's kind of like you guys. How many times do you guys eat during the day? Be honest with me. How many times do you guys eat during the day? I see two times, 4 times. I see somebody in the back of the room going like this. How many times do you guys eat during the day? Probably at least 3, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm willing to bet that you might have a few snacks in between, by the way. But how many times you feed your corn crop? If you say just one time, I mean, don't you feel guilty? If you're eating 3, 4 times, 5 times a day and you're only feeding your corn crop once, don't you feel guilty? That's kind of how we think about growing our crops here. Now, I'm going to set up how we're feeding these crops. I just want to put my little disclaimer out. I'm not recommending one company over another. I'm just saying here's how we set it up, and you guys can decide for yourself. But this is a nature's program. I come in with DAP and potash as my control. Then I reallocate using Conceal and FurrowJet. And then here are my post applications. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just what we did. Okay? And look at this. In my whole field high yield program, this is just dry fertilizer with my strip till, 345 bushel. Now it's irrigated, so it should be a high number. But where we do this reallocation program and doing these other treatments, we take 340 corn to 377. That's a 31.6 bushel yield advantage. I like that number. 377. That's a pretty good yield of corn. This year, the number I made $62 additional over just doing it all with dry. It is lower than what I'd like, but it's using $4.08 corn, much lower than what we've seen over the past few years. And I will tell you, I'm trying to be leaner with my fertilizer applications. I think we've been putting on too much, and it's eating me up cost-wise. We got guys coming to us and saying, oh yeah, you ought to try this, you ought to try that, but when I get the bill in the mailbox, it's like, ugh, I ain't getting enough in return to pay for it. I'm struggling with that. We gotta wean some of these guys out of here. Here's another program. Again, I'm not recommending anybody, I just want to show you how we set it up. Look at this. We take a dry land control, growing 230 bushel corn, all with dry fertilizer. I add water to it. I pick up 36.5 bushel of corn. That's pretty good. But then we put our fertility program in. I pick up another 10 bushel of corn on top of it. I put a foliar program on in addition to the planter, and I'm up to 25 bushel. It just keeps on going. This is what I like to see. And look, there's profit doing it. Here's another program. Look how the yields, this is dry fertilizer by itself. And when I keep this program going, I'm making extra bushels and I'm making money. Now, see, look at this. We put too much on and some of our dollars go away. And we have to be careful of this. We have to understand which products are giving us yield and which ones are not. Can't just throw the kitchen sink at it. Here's another one, lots of different products here, so many, and we've got to fix this. But I'll tell you, when you look at high yield data from a lot of folks that are trying to get high yield, what do they show you? What's the end result? How do they measure success? It's yield. There's nothing, nobody ever talks about profit. Nobody does. All these products that I'm putting on right here have a cost, but look what is happening yield-wise. When I'm doing it, I'm picking up yield. Am I making any money? Yes, we are. How do I move that $103 an acre net profit that the U of I told me we're making and add these numbers to it? That's what I'm looking for right now. Here's another one. The trend, I'll just go through these super fast, but the trend continues through all of them. This is Corteva. This used to be Stoller USA. They were bought by Corteva. It's just the same thing is happening here versus just dry fertilizer in the fall. Some pretty good numbers. Ag Explorer, same way. It just goes on and on and on when we do it. It's working in the field, and I'm going to keep doing it until the numbers show me otherwise. Here's AgriLiquid, maybe the last one. I mean, some of these are just unbelievable numbers. That's an extra $108. Remember my 103 number from the University of Illinois? I just doubled it. Now, we grew 377 in our whole field, high yield area, and I said, wait a minute, we got a long ways to go to get to 600. So I said, we got to play around here, think outside the box, and figure out how we're going to grow some higher yielding corn. And so my toolbox that I'm using, obviously I've got my tile to get water away when we're wet, bring it back in to irrigate. I've got my planter that I'm putting liquid fertilizer on in bands. We've already talked about it. We're using drones or UAVs to apply in season. I'm going to narrow row corn. I don't know if we'll get into it today, but I just love my narrow row corn. It's giving me more yield every single year. It's scary for a lot of people thinking about how to grow narrow row corn, especially 15-inch row corn, but I'll tell you, it's making me money.
So your narrow corn's 15?
15. My narrowest corn is 15. Yeah, we run 15s, 20s, and 30s. Yep. Now, what do you guys think about this? Somebody mentioned soil health earlier. What do you think about this? I got strip cropping going on. Look at that corn. They say a picture says 1,000 words. When you look at that corn right there, what gets you excited about growing corn? Look at that corn. What do you see? Look at the sunlight. You guys ever heard about this strip cropping thing where if you grow a tall crop of corn and put a short crop next to it and you let the corn get more sun, it'll make corn yield more? You guys ever heard this before? Does it work? It does? All right, here's going to be the question of the day. If it does work, if you give more sunlight to corn, are any of you strip cropping to do this? Hey, show of hands. Oh my gosh, I've got 3. How long have you been strip cropping? 2 years? Okay, here's a big question. You're going to do it a 3rd year? Yes, good. And does it work? It gives you more yield, right? That corn gets more sunlight. We'll plant higher populations on the outside as well, but I'm telling you, this is an easy way to grab another 40 to 50 extra bushel of corn. It works. Now, the management, as you know, the management of growing, when we started, corn and soybeans together in the same field can be a little challenging. Is that what your short crop is, the soybeans? Yeah. Are the soybeans doing good? Yeah. I felt we were losing a little bit of yield on the soybeans when we did our strip cropping. We did it for 3 years, and I thought, what else can I grow? Can I eliminate the soybeans and grow another crop? And then I got thinking, wait a minute. I've been struggling with cover crops because we plant cover crops when? When do you guys plant your cover crops? Oh, after you harvest your crop, right? After you harvest your corn and soybeans, you go out and put a cover crop on. What's the problem with that? The growing season's over. It's going to get cold, and getting that cover crop established is kind of difficult. I said, what if we just establish our cover crop June 1st? And so we're coming in and we're planting a cover crop as our short crop in between the corn. And think about this, increasing soil health with that cover crop growing in June, July, and August. Now, not only are we getting tremendous top growth, but what do you think we're doing underneath? Oh yeah, nutrient sequestration, all the great things a cover crop is supposed to do for me.
You need sheep.
It ain't cheap.
No, you need sheep.
Oh, he says I need sheep is what he said. Okay, hold that thought for a minute because I am going to show you that. Okay, look, here, a picture says 1,000 words, strip cropping. I'm planting corn and soybeans north and south, and I'm planting corn and soybeans east and west. Anybody tell me if you're going to strip crop, what direction you have to plant corn and soybeans to be successful? Look at that picture. What is the answer? I heard a north-south. This is north-south. We have a major problem with north-south plantings with strip crop. What is the major problem? I'm pointing at it right here. Those are soybeans right there. Are them soybeans getting any sun? No, they're not. Let me ask you the question. Do soybeans like sun? Oh yeah, they're photosensitive. When you do strip cropping and you plant them north-south, you shade them all day long. Sun comes up in the east, you know, and then it sets in the west. You're going to shade on both sides with the tall crop of corn. This is a no-no. It took me 3 years to figure this one out. You got to plant east-west. Look at the amount of sunlight through the east-west planted rows. That definitely helps. We were still losing yield on beans though. These are on 40-foot strips. You can see I got tall corn in the centers, short corn on the outside to offer less shading for the beans. Here's my east-west rows. Look at the shade. There is none. I got yelled at my first year for going 40 foot. People said, oh, you're too wide. I said, well, geez, it's only 40 foot wide. How narrow would you like me to go? They said, as narrow as you can go. So then we cut it in half. We went to 20s, 20 feet wide. Those are 8 30-inch rows. And now we're down to 10 feet. 4 30-inch rows with either soybeans on the side of them or a short crop of a cover crop. We got rid of the soybeans and I put these cover crops in. We're still trying to figure out what species of cover crop to plant because I'm coming in with your sheep. I'm going to use these cover crops as a feed ration. Not only is it going to give me great soil health by having this in June, July, and August, but I'm going to put livestock in here and I'm going to change soil health drastically. Here's what we do. We bring livestock into this component and we're going to take this cover crop 10 feet wide and we have an autonomous livestock containment unit that will move about 1 foot every hour, and the livestock will devour the cover crop. I ain't gonna feed them with anything else. I'm just gonna give them the cover crop, give them a little bit of water, and we're gonna put this system in play. Here's what it looks like. Here's my autonomous stock cropper is what we call it. This is 10 feet wide. I don't know, it's like 40 or 50 feet long, but it runs next to my corn, and it's full of livestock. In the front of this thing is your sheep that you mentioned. And the sheep, they're basically lawnmowers. Lawnmowers. Chew down that cover crop. Take her down to the ground. It won't kill it. It'll come back as long as I get a rain, and I'm going to re-graze it again. Ladies and gentlemen, while the sheep are grazing the cover crop, what are the sheep giving me? Manure. I had a farmer from Idaho come to the PTI Farm this summer. He says, I grow 6,000 head of sheep. I said, I've never met a 6,000 head sheep farmer before. And he said, you know sheep have an enzyme in their manure that makes it the best manure in the world? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I hope you're right. Because I've got sheep up here leading the way, eating this cover crop. Better eat fast. Yeah, every 12, think of it, every 12 inches, we're giving them more, and they're just devouring this stuff. They love it. Then in the middle of this unit, we brought hogs in. I got pork chops and bacon. Now, these are on slats. These hogs are on slats because if you put them on the ground, what's a hog got on their face? It'll do a little tillage. It's a snout, and I'm strip till, so I can't have any of that, right? And so I've got hogs in here. I got them for 2 reasons. Number one, I want the pork chops and the bacon, because remember, I don't have any soybeans in here anymore to sell. And so I have to replace revenue, and I'm going to sell the hogs. I'm going to sell the meat, okay? The other reason, a second form of manure. Some of you guys are laughing at me right now. They're looking at me kind of weird. This has been an interesting project. It really has. I have staff at the farm that want to quit. Yeah, they want this project to go away. On the backside of the sheep and the hogs, this is where we bring meat chickens in. And I don't want to be a chicken farmer, I don't, but I sell these things every 8 weeks and I get 20 bucks a head. 20 bucks a head for these things every 8 weeks, just put a new crop in. And I'll tell you, these chickens, they're just pooping machines. And when you walk behind this system of having the sheep, the cover crop, the hog manure, and the scavengers of these chickens, You can just see the difference in the soil. You put a soil probe in it and you test it right now, fertility-wise, I'm 3x where I started, and I've only done this for 2 years. How many of you guys have livestock? Anybody? 20, 30 years ago, if I would have asked that question, how many hands would have gone up? All of you, probably. And the thing right now is the big trend or fad in the industry is, oh, you ought to buy a soil biological and put it in furrow on the planter. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to do that because I have this. And it works a lot better. So we'll run this. Corn will get extra yield because of the sunlight. I get all this fertilizer here. I'm going to harvest the corn, sell the livestock, I'll get rid of this unit, and I come in with my strip till rig. My strip till rig's got dry tanks of fertilizer behind it. Do I have to fill those tanks with fertilizer for my corn next year? Because I'm going to have corn in this strip right here. Do I need to apply any fertilizer? No, I already got it from the livestock. So there's zero expense for that. Ladies and gentlemen, where I ran this unit, that's where I grew 435 bushel corn. That's what it took. Now, we just got to figure out if this is sustainable or not. I'd like to make this project a little larger to get more acres covered. But again, I'll say this. When you walk out there in the field now, I've already got my strips made to plant corn this spring, but you can just feel it. If it wasn't frozen, you'd just feel yourself sink. The soil tilt is amazing. This is going to work. Now, will it allow me to grow 623 bushel corn? I have no idea. But this is outside of the box thinking, and it's working. It's working. The soil, I think, likes it. Yes, sir. Oh, you're saying I only got half my acres in corn, so that 434 bushel corn is 217 bushel corn. Yeah. No, it's not 217 bushel corn. We figured that yield on those acres, and then the acres in between, just like we would have soybeans there and we would sell that crop, we're looking at a total revenue scenario, and I will tell you, the livestock will replace the revenue from the soybeans. So it's totally offsetted. It is. That's the part we got to keep sustainable on it. But I've got 435 bushel corn on my corn acres, and then I've got to look at the other acres, which are either soybeans, like in your case probably, and who else raised their hand and said they're doing cropping? Yeah, corn and soybeans? Yeah, how many years you been doing it? 3 years. We going to do it a fourth? Attaboy. Good, good, good. Look at the revenue coming in. Take 434.9 bushel corn times $4.08, and that's a lot of money. I can't generate that growing 240, 250 bushel corn. That is a huge number. Net-wise, after all of our expenses, look, we're making money on this thing. Some hybrids different than others. There's my grandma. There's that 435 bushel corn. She told me, she said, Jason, what about your yield to seeding rate ratio? And I said, what are you talking about, Grandma? And she says, well, if you're planting 36,000 seeds per acre corn in your high yield studies, you should take 36 times 10 and you should be growing 360 bushel corn. Is this right? Anybody ever heard this before? It's seeding rate times 10? That's what a lot of the folks say. Yeah, and I'll just tell you, with my 435 bushel corn with this hybrid right here, I barely hit 10. All that work to hit a 10.1. Now, obviously, our seeding rates are going up on this corn, getting more sunlight. The outside rows, we're going up to like 44, 45,000. So that's part of this mix. But you can see the rest of the hybrids up here, 8.9, 8.3. My control, which was 240 bushel corn, is a 6.9. I don't know what your number is, but I hope you know it. Think about it. Calculate it up. I just want you to know what your number is and watch whether it's going up or whether it's going down. Okay? Number 3, this is what we've talked about with soybean and corn fertilizer. This is why we don't want to broadcast fertilizer anymore. When we banned it, we're making about $90 extra an acre. Here again is my strip till program. This is how we used to do fertilizer a lot. Some of you may do this. We broadcast it on, and that's how we feed a crop. We don't do that anymore. We're going to banding. And some folks will say, well, Jason, wait a minute. You're banding fertilizer, high concentrated bands of fertilizer in these strips. Do you think you could use less fertilizer as a result? You think that's a good question? That's a very good question. So we're testing this, and we'll look at 100% broadcast rates compared to 100% banded, and then we reduce fertilizer rates by 25% all the way down to 0. And this is part of a 10-year study at the farm. I can't do this just 1 year and give you results. I've got to do it for a decade and see how often this thing worked, and did it draw soil test levels down, what was yield, what was profits, so on and so forth. This is just a difference of banding versus broadcast at 100, 75, 50, and 25% rates. Over 2021 to 2024, band has beat broadcast at every single rate. Again, feeding the root, don't feed every square inch of the soil. Some people say, Jason, if you put 0 pounds of fertilizer on your corn, you're going to lose yield. Is that true? Well, generally, yes. This is 24 data. The orange bar is where we soil test. We put on 100% broadcast rated fertilizer with that spinner truck. Then I come in with my strip till. I use that same 100% rate. I pick up a little bit of yield, but then I start cutting my rates by 25% all the way down to 0. And I lost 10.5 bushel corn by not putting any fertilizer on this past year on my corn. I lost 10.5 bushel. Was that a train wreck? Was it bad that I lost yield? What about profitability? Oh my, this is where my ag retailer doesn't like me. 100% rate of fertilizer, I cash flowed this, okay? I cut rate 25%, I make 50 bucks. I cut rate 50%, I make almost 60 bucks. I cut rate 25%, I make almost $85. And ladies and gentlemen, my fertilizer rate that made me the most money for my corn in 2024 was 0 pounds of fertilizer. This is why my ag retailer doesn't like me. '21 through '24, putting 0 pounds of fertilizer on, I've lost 16.4 bushel of corn. Some folks may say, I can't do that. But ladies and gentlemen, you got to look at what the fertilizer is costing you. Are you getting enough yield in return to pay for it? Right now, putting 0 pounds on from 21 to 24, I'm making $5 an acre, putting 0 fertilizer on versus cash flowing 100% dry fertilizer through my strip till in the fall. The moral of the story is this: the dry fertilizer costs too dang much. And yes, when I put it on, I get yield out of it, but I'm not getting enough to offset the high cost of the DAP and potash. The system's kind of broke right now. And so we look at this and say, wait a minute, if it's way too high price, well, let's stop the conventional spreading of fertilizer and let's band it and let's use half as much. Is that farming smarter? Absolutely it is. Now you're probably saying, well, wait a minute now, if you're not putting any fertilizer on, you're probably drawing soil test levels down. On my corn, here's soil test phosphorus history, 21, 22, 23, 24. We've got 4 years of a 10-year study. This coming year will be my 5th. And I don't know, that's just pounds per acre. I don't know that phosphorus has moved hardly at all in my 100% rates. When I've gone to 0, I've gone from a 67 to a 45. 45 pound per acre soil test P. Yes, I'm losing a little bit of yield, but when I pay for the fertilizer, I'm not getting enough in return to offset it. Here's K levels. I've gone from a 390 to a 334. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be costing me anything right now. Soybeans, if I banned soybeans, about a 1.5 to 2 bushel increase. But look what happens on soybeans. This is 24 data, 0 pounds of fertilizer are making me the most money compared to 100% broadcast. And I do it for multi-year. Look at that, it's a $36 gain by not putting any fertilizer on. Where am I at with soil tests? Here's my soil test levels. I got a 36 and 39 pound per acre phosphorus score where I've done this, and it's still not making me money putting fertilizer on. These are the things we need to analyze. Everybody just tells us every year, just go blast 200 and 200 on. 200 pounds of DAP, 200 pounds of potash. I'm not making any money doing it. Someone else is making money, but it's not me. And I don't know, I guess I'll say this. I don't mean to offend anybody, but it's just the system kind of seems broken right now where everybody is trying to make money off a farmer, but the farmer ain't making any money. Don't you think the system's kind of broke? I think we need to change this.